Greetings, YouTube. At the time of this recording, Biden has just announced that there's going to be an additional $9 billion in relief. Now, that is sadly only going to cover 125,000 loans. Think about that for a minute. 125,000 loans, $9 billion. That's just twisted. It's twisted that there are such things as student debt in America at all. And prior to Reagan, student debt was an incredibly small issue, and most people went to school and never had to worry about it. But thanks to Reagan, and who did the solid work of landing the beachhead of the conservative movement that has moved forward since then to destroy the middle class and eradicate upward mobility for anyone that isn't a member of the Ivy League. Now there are many, many people who have been saddled with student debt, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars of it. And you can pay your student debt, and you can always be on time. You can always pay, the maximum you can afford, and you can still end up having to pay more than you ever got close because the interest is insane. There are things in the world that should not be allowed to earn a profit from. Education, food, housing, healthcare. These are things that you should not be allowed to earn a profit on, period. You can break even, and the folks that do the work can get paid, but you should not be allowed to make a profit off of someone's education. That's just flat out wrong. And I firmly believe that it should be illegal. We should have a law that says that you can't make a profit off of someone's education. Whether it's a private school or a public school or a charter school, doesn't matter. You cannot make a profit. And that would eliminate completely this whole absurdity of student debt. But in the meantime, we have people in America that owe well over $1 trillion in student loan. Now, by doing this and lifting debt off of 125,000 Americans, they are going to lift so many people out of poverty and towards financial security, which is, of course, why the Republicans are fighting this tooth and nail. They don't want Americans to be lifted out of poverty. They want as many Americans as possible to be in poverty, because that means that they'll be more easily exploited. They're going to be more likely to get them to join the military because they have no future without, some kind of a deal that'll get them an education. So if you go out there and you kill people and put your life on the line, we'll give you an education. As opposed to, say, any just society would just say, if you want an education, you can have one. K through college graduation should all be free of charge at the point of delivery. We got lots of money, folks. Strangely, we let billionaires hoard it, and we shouldn't. Not to mention, we give a whole hell of a lot too much money to the military. Far, far too much money to the military. They are absurdly large, and there aren't any real-world enemies for us to have a military that large for. Really, there isn't. And I don't quite understand why we have to keep getting additional spending for, like, Ukraine. The military has billions of dollars worth of hardware. We shouldn't actually have to raise extra money for that. We've already paid for it. Just ship it over there. Just keep shipping over munitions and weapon systems. As many as we can cram onto boats, ship it right over to Ukraine. If the Russians have 100 tanks in an area, we should make sure that the Ukrainians have 1,000 tanks in that same area. Yep. Keep doing that forever until we drive the Russians right back to where they belong. But this is about student debt. So, yeah, I'm happy Biden's doing this. I'm glad that there's going to be 125,000 Americans that are going to be able to get themselves one step further in life without being saddled by the burden. I know that in one of the last rounds of student debt relief, my wife was able to get hers canceled, which is going to save us $13,000. She had paid, every day, every payment without a miss for 20 years, and they were able to pay off the rest of it. So that was kind of cool. And interestingly, that is considered to be earnings. So you have to pay taxes on it as though you just received $13,000 worth of money, but we didn't receive $13,000 worth of money. We just had a debt that should have never existed erased, but we're still going to get taxed on it. Yeah, isn't the system great? So I encourage Biden to keep doing this. Cancel as much as he possibly can, because that's going to help Americans. And unlike the GOP, even though I despise most of the policies that Democrats endorse because they're so driven, sometimes they actually do the right thing. And helping to lift Americans out of debt is one of those things that we should all endorse.